Hello and welcome to Demian Allen's Astrology and Tarot channel. And this is your monthly forecast for March 2021, how the planets are going to manifest, what to look out for, and really the key dates to look out for during this next 4 weeks. So we start off with March the 1st. 2021, and this is the chart, and we see immediately the sun at 10 degrees in Pisces, with also Venus in Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces, so it's comfortable. We've got still major configurations in Aquarius at the start of this month, with Saturn at 8 degrees in Aquarius. That Mercury at 14 degrees in Aquarius now, obviously that's come out of a retrograde and is still essentially in its shadow period, but it is moving forward now. And then we've got Jupiter at 16 degrees also in Aquarius. So we've still got a stellium of planets in Aquarius, so that those themes are still playing out at the beginning of the month. If we look down here, Mars. Now, Mars is now going to be on the 1st at 28 degrees in Taurus. So it's about to, in the next few days, ingress, I think it's on the 4th actually of March, into Gemini. That's quite significant, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And we've got obviously Uranus at 7 degrees moving forward here. Pluto at 26 degrees in Capricorn moving forward. And Neptune is again moving forward in Pisces. So we've got a lot of planets moving forward, and that's good. There's no retrogrades that are occurring, which is always a positive manifestation of, if you're looking at the collective, then things are moving forward. The first 10 degrees of this month, which comes under the jurisdiction of the second decan of Pisces in the tarot, is the 9 of Cups that you see here. And in this particular card, the sort of sub-ruler here, of course, is Pisces, but also Jupiter. And that is really significant. Of course, we've got the water element that's dominating this particular period in time, and the sun, of course, in Pisces, and Venus is in Pisces, and Neptune. So when we're dealing with a water element, we're dealing with the energy that is emotional, receptive, adaptable, changeable, inspiring. And don't forget, we're coming to the end of the astrological wheel, the end of the cycle, the last couple of weeks of winter. So there'll be a sense of endings that will be around, or the energy that things are sort of coming to some kind of conclusion. And I always say that Pisces is, passing from one world to the next. And there's always that kind of feeling with Pisces energy that, you got one foot in one world and another in another, and you're in between the two. So in a kind of for a spiritual practice, this is a great time, because the access, I know people talk about, when particularly when the sun is in Scorpio and Samhain, and the veil between the two worlds as it's finished. But I also include the time just before the spring equinox. Is deeply significant, that Piscean time. If you think about the wheel of the zodiac, Pisces rules, it's the 12th house. It's the end and the beginning, the alpha and omega. It's hugely important. So that 9 of Cups that we showed at tarot card, it can be very, very, very positive in emotional expression. It can be warming. It can be inspirational. It can also, on the flip side of it, be a little delusional, or taken by the illusions of things that seem to have a glamour to them. Is particularly strong energy about it. And glamour is a word that I really kind of associate with the times that we live in. And anybody who's read Alice A. Bailey will know where I'm coming from, with her take on this period in time where we are taken in by glamour a lot. And that really comes in with the Neptunian energy that's been traveling in Pisces since spring of 2011. This no boundaries. It's an energy that is totally does not want to be contained. It wants to be able to filter in anywhere and take lots of influences, but not put it into something concrete. It's like the fishes swimming in the stream. It just wants to float and go where it wants. So it's quite an important time period, I feel, this March. So we start off with a relatively quiet kind of energy, apart from this build-up of Mars. Of course, Mars going into, if I just look at the 4th, which I believe it's going to be. Let's have a look. So we're into the 4th. Yeah, the 4th of March. We can now see here that Mars has gone into Gemini, where it will be for, near enough a couple of months. So I think that's really significant. And the reason why I say that is because in July of 2020, Mars went into Aries, and it was there for a 6-month period because Mars went retrograde. And then at the beginning of the year, it went into Taurus. And Mars found it very difficult to operate in Taurus. So Mars has not had the best of time of it, really. It's not been able to actually fully utilize that planetary energy. And what's happened here is that because of that, it's a kind of a little bit of a passive aggressive energy about it. And also it's been, while it's been in Taurus, it's been clashing with all the Aquarius planets, particularly in January, that we saw, clashing with Saturn, and clashing also with Uranus, with a conjunction. So I think, although Mars in Gemini, I wouldn't say it was a natural, combination that I would go, that's fantastic. It certainly can do more than it's done for a while. Well, for about an 8-month period. So I think that is going to be quite a shift, actually, for us all, that we're all going to begin to sort of feel. And what it's going to do is that as it progresses through Gemini, especially early stages, it's going to make these 120-degree trine aspects with Saturn, with Jupiter, in a way, a little bit of Mercury, not so much. And I think that's really going to be really good, especially at trining the Saturn. Actually, I think that's a nice combination, because of course traditionally those two planets are known as the malefic planets, which is kind of a term I'm not that comfortable with. But what it essentially means is that they're the players that can cause the most damage. But if they're speaking in the same element, which is the air element in this case, Gemini is going to be, Mars is in Gemini and Saturn's in Aquarius. They're communicating with each other. So there is a dialogue happening with both those planets that actually can heed some really positive results. So I think that's a very big step for this month that is occurring with this. I really do. And even if we look at the 4th here, we can see that the Sun, in Pisces at 13 degrees, the Sun is making that sort of applying conjunction to Neptune, which I kind of feel like is always a little tricky. energy, and you know, this always to me signifies more of the smoke and mirrors, things that are put out there perhaps in the media, not seen as in a clear way, or digested by the people in a way that means that people get more confused. It tends to bring confusion with it. Luckily that Venus is sort of holding things together, but it's an interesting mix there that's going on. Just on another thing, that this is the ongoing square aspect between Saturn and Uranus that's playing out for most of this year, and it's the big aspect, and it's still playing out in March, as you can see. You know, Saturn's at 8 degrees 49 minutes in Aquarius, and there is Uranus moving forward in 7 degrees 43. So you know that is playing out between the battle of the traditional against the unconventional, or the modern approach. So the past and the future clash slightly here in the collective, in the ideas and the philosophies. There's a lot to do with the word ethics with these two. You know, how do we move forward with maybe different morals or different ethics for the way we look at society, or do we revert to the past and hope that the past will bring about some positive results? It's an intriguing battle between those two, and will remain so for 2021. And in fact, I would say that for me, that template of those two for the year, and I've said this before, is going to bring about a huge amount of changes in society and politically and economically that are going to be have an influence for quite a long time, actually. And it's who's going to win, really, out of the two. So that takes us to the 4th of March here. Let's just sort of move slightly more forward to see how things are going to sort of pan out. So we're going to go moving forward. So we're still in that first the second decan of Pisces here, and this is the 10th of March that we are beginning to see. Okay, so if we look at the change here, we can see that we're approaching a new moon that is going to occur in the next couple of days on the 13th, because there's the moon in Aquarius, and it's got to go to Pisces for it to be a new moon to make a conjunction. So again, you can see just on the 10th, the overemphasis of Aquarian planets, and indeed the Piscean themes. So these are the two zodiac signs that are dominating, and they are the last two signs of the zodiac. So, you know, there is again that sense of things coming to conclusions, things coming to the end of a particular cycle, which is kind of really interesting, because of course we're not far away from the spring equinox, where we're heading towards. And we can see here that Jupiter is moving quite fast. It's now at 18 degrees, and we can see that Mercury has gone past Jupiter. So that's going to be interesting when Mercury makes a conjunction with Jupiter, you know, between the 5th of March and the sort of 9th of March. It's a separating conjunction, but it's still having an influence. And I kind of like those two planets when they get together. And that means it can do stuff, Mercury. Okay, Mercury's a bit of a trickster energy, and particularly have to say in Aquarius it can be, but it's exalted, so it can function. We can see Saturn here as well, now at 9 degrees 26 minutes. Again, the emphasis is on the planets moving forward. We can also see that during this time on the 10th, the Sun is 1 degree away from making a conjunction with Neptune, and also just behind them is Venus at 15 degrees. Very interesting, that combination. When we have a lot of Pisces energy, I tend to find, when dealing with clients at this particular time of year, it is about dreams, looking ahead. What do they want the next year to bring? So people are looking at dreams. I want to change my job. I want to go back into this education. I want to retrain. And if I look at that, that's the two energies that are really combining there. Are it's the Pisces energy, which is essentially the 12th house is about dreams and our sleeping life and the unconscious and our inner life. And so we have to have a vision in order to pursue. And so collective basis, people tend to have quite significant dreams at this time of year. And it comes in with the whole idea of the spring equinox as the launch pad, as the start of the astrological wheel, the start of spring in the northern hemisphere. And therefore, when you're looking at those two energies, it's about creating the vision internally and then externalizing it, which comes in with the spring equinox. And that's how I've observed over the years. That's how people tend to use that particularly planetary energy at that time of year. And it's very popular. People will there's a rhythm to it that even if you're not into astrology in any form, I see that with people. It's creating the vision and then externalizing it and putting it into practice once the sun goes into Aries. Really people. And the key to this is the next tarot card that is associated with this particular period from the 10th to the 20th, 21st of March. And that is the 10 of Cups, which is the Mars effect in Pisces. This is very, very strong, because in order to create that vision, you have to be active. You have to participate. And this is a card of action of the emotions and the ability to transform dreams into reality. And what's interesting, of course, is that you've got Mars, which is the sub-rule of this period, in Gemini. So a lot of the collective ideas will be, how do I communicate effectively to the outside world? With structure, with purpose. Or another popular one will be people looking at two jobs, two occupations, having the day-to-day job and training to do something else because of that Mars factor. And this is intensified because, of course, the sun during this time, 10th and particularly 11th of March and the 12th, is that the sun is conjunct to Neptune. And Neptune being the modern ruler of Pisces, although I'm not I don't actually use the modern rulerships. I prefer the traditional rulerships. I look at the outer planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as more collective planets, meaning that they're more generational. So I assign the traditional rulerships, where in this case with Pisces it's Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Aquarius, and has got a conjunction with Mercury. So a lot of this is to do with this energy is to do with groups. How can we communicate effectively within a group or the collective, being really kind of popular. So I think that's really that's an important junction that's happening here. So if we just move this forward again to look So we're now into the 13th, and yeah, we can see that we're on the day of the new moon. The moon is at 20 degrees, the sun is at 22 degrees. So in about 4 hours, sort of midday-ish, it's going to be the new moon on the 13th. We also see that Neptune is at 20 degrees with the moon, and Venus is at 19 degrees. So again, huge amount of Piscean energy, huge amount that is taking place here. And look at that, the applying trine that I was talking about of Mars at 5 degrees to Saturn at 9 degrees. That's really interesting. So I think a lot of optimism is going to start to come about for people, and people getting practical. Because of that trine between Mars and Saturn, there is a practical application that is going on here. It might be slightly scattered because, of course, Mars is in Gemini, but it's like this is a period when people can actually start to put plans into action. And if we look, obviously, at the recent events, particularly with the pandemic, we'd have to say, well, let's be honest, we've not been able to put plans into action, because when we've done it, it's not gone according to plan because things keep changing, the sands keep shifting. So I think this is very, very significant in the idea that actually we can start to plan ahead and put those dreams, you know, hold that vision, be true to yourself, true to your beliefs. This is the period, this is what Pisces is about as an energy. It's about, you know, living your dreams and understanding your dreams, and you know, you might say, well, it's a bit of an illusion or whatever. It's not, it doesn't matter. You've got to have a vision before you can do anything. If you notice in life, if you don't have a vision, you won't get anywhere. It's like if you go and to the universe and go, well, I don't really know what I want, that's what will come back. You see, you've got to have that sort of vision, a quest. And you're the one that creates that in the mind's eye, in the land of dreams. You know, that's really kind of important. That's what the Piscean energy is there. It's like, you know, look at it being that whole aspect of being born. You know, you're before you're born, you're in the womb. You're taking in the sounds of the world before you enter into it. That's that womb status is the Pisces energy. You're creating something to come out into the world, you know, and that's the switch between Pisces and Aries. Really kind of important. So yeah, so, and this is why I think that there's an old thing about if you notice your Pisces friends or people around you, Pisceans, they do tend to have quite a dominant effect on Aries, the one sign that actually does, simply because they come before that sign and they have a kind of an understanding of where they've come from, whereas an Aries is always looking ahead, always looking, you know, it's not really interested in the past. And Pisces reminds the Aries of the past and past actions. So really, really significant time. And yeah, so we got the new moon, lovely new moon, because we've also got the influence of the exalted Venus in Pisces energy. We can see this ongoing square, I'm reminding you, and I will continue to remind you, between Uranus and Saturn, again at 1 degree. Uranus has just moved into 8 degrees in Taurus here. The moon's nodes, 14 degrees between the polarity of Gemini and Sagittarius. That is an ongoing theme that is playing out to do with travel for this year, and it particularly hits a high point in June, early June, which on the video June I will obviously talk about a lot. The other planet that I've not really spoken about, which is Pluto. Pluto's relatively quiet here for a change. You know, it's sextiled by applying sextile the sun, but I'm not going to put too much emphasis on that. So, you know, Pluto's kind of left on its own. Sometimes when Pluto's left on its own, it can do its thing on its own, and that could be more scary because you don't know what it's doing. You know, it's sort of lurking in the background. But wherever another planet or planets are influencing it, and you can actually see Pluto and go, well, you know, I know what you're up to. But at the moment, it's sort of lurking in the background at that 26-degree mark here. And yeah, you know, it was influenced just at the end of February by and early March by Mars making a trine to it, but now that's sort of left alone. So yeah, Pluto's sort of on its own. Okay, let's move some more forward. So we're in the kind of the new moon stage, and now we're going to go into the 17th of March here, and you know, we can see that Saturn is really kind of is at 10 degrees, and now Jupiter is 20 degrees. It's rocking through Aquarius, you know, because in May it going into Pisces until July, and then goes back into Aquarius for the rest of the year till right to the end of the year, and then it goes back into Pisces, and then we those Pisces themes come in again. But that's kind of interesting. That sextile that I was talking about on the 17th of March between Pluto and the Sun is there. That's quite nice, actually supportive, and plus Venus as well coming into that sextile aspect here. Mercury has now gone into on the 16th of March, 17th, has gone into Pisces. Now, Mercury is not comfortable in Pisces. You know, Mercury is a planet that needs clarity and logic, and Pisces is certainly not that. So whenever I see Mercury in Pisces, I would say it's a bit like Mercury retrograde in a way. It's got the energy to it, and I mean that can be deeply inspirational. Don't think, oh my god, it's you know, it's dreadful. It's not. It can be very poetic and abstract and inspirational, but it can get lost, and communication can get a little bit sort of how can I put it, misunderstandings can occur during this time. Emotional misunderstandings, the emotional aspect of it, I think, is really kind of important. So I always think that yes, the Mercury is not that comfortable in Pisces, and there is still a lot of Pisces energy at this time. You know, there's a lot of dreams being created out there, but also a little bit of confusion and an optimism. And this is the last stages before the Spring Equinox, which is Spring Equinox, one of the most significant events in the astrological calendar, and I'll be taking a look at that in just a second. But yeah, for me, it's like everything coming to sort of conclusions internally, a feeling of inner and reflective period during this time leading up to the Spring Equinox, very much so. And I think that's really displayed in terms of the planets. So let's just move forward again. So let's look at the 20th. Okay, the 20th, here we go. We've got the Sun right at the end, 29 degrees 51 on the 20th. Let's start to move that forward to see you know, when that Spring Equinox, there we go. Okay, so the Sun enters into Aries at 10 a.m. Around just before 10 a.m. On the 20th of March, Spring Equinox. And so this is the chart for it, which I always take the charts for particular moments, let's say. So the Cancer rising is really kind of significant here, and that of course puts the Sun right at the 10th house. So again, I said this before, the emphasis for a lot of people is going to be career from the Spring Equinox, and reaching out, because the midheaven, and I use the whole sign house system, which can put the midheaven in the 8th, the 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th house. But in this particular chart, the midheaven is at 25 degrees in Aquarius with Jupiter at 20 degrees. So it's applying a conjunction by 5 degrees or just under 5 degrees. That's significant. Big dreams, big dreams here, you know, and the sun, of course, applying to the asteroid Chiron. So, you know, that as the collectives are really kind of feeling that kind of wounds that they need to, there's a feeling of need to strike out on our own, to do our own things, to take back control a lot here. Is the energy that's really circulating at this particular time. We also have the moon at 16 degrees in Gemini, just separating from making a conjunction with the North Node at 13 degrees in Gemini. That's significant. So there is a real sense of optimism coming in here, real sense of this is the year 2021 is really kind of starting. And the card that's associated with the period, you know, from the March the 20th to the 30th in the tarot is the Two of Wands. So we're into the fire element, and this is about control and dominating factors. And you know, again, it's the Mars in Aries. You know, it's the conqueror, it's the initiator, it's the brave warrior or Valkyrie that moves forward. This is about taking back control, you know, and being really strong on a soul element to really bring in the ideas that has been formulating in the Piscean phase. Really kind of important, really important. And I think that is demonstrated by the energy of, you know, the sun right in the 10th house here. We can also see that Venus is at 28 degrees in Pisces, so that's about to move, ingress into Aries here as well. So it's a very interesting chart here, and one of the key features here is the Jupiter on culminating on the midheaven point here in this particular chart in Aquarius. And again, it emphasizes sort of people taking back control. Startup businesses, people going it alone, ideas are coming into fruition that's been bubbling underneath the surface. Again, I said about the quest, the vision, creating the vision in the Piscean stage in this beginning. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of imagination is going to straight away happen on the 20th of March, but certainly you will feel on an energetic shift, something's happening, something's occurring. You know, right, okay, it's like waking up from a deep dream. Okay, right, we can plan things, we can get things going. Right, what do you want to do? That's the energy that's coming from this, and it's strong. How governments are going to respond to this energy without seeming like the party poopers is going to be interesting. And again, I re-emphasize, you know, the square between Uranus and Saturn, that coming into place. That's going to be fascinating. How? Because I think they're not going to be able to kind of go, right, stop it. I think they're going to have to listen and say, okay, actually, people are sick and tired. People do need to move their lives forward. Okay, so that's the Spring Equinox, and that's always a major. That's like my new year, and it sort of sets the tone, I believe, for the year ahead. And when you've got a Cancer rising, interestingly, the rule of the chart becomes the moon, of course, and that's in Gemini in the 12th house. So a lot of unconscious stuff coming up as well. And it's quite a therapeutic combination that's happening around that. Okay, let's begin to move this another couple of days. So now we're on March the 25th, so coming to the end of the month. We can see that in around about the 28th, you'll have the full moon. The moon is a couple of signs away from opposing the sun, which is at 4 degrees in Aries, which is getting ever closer to Chiron. And you've also got Venus now firmly in Aries at 4 degrees. There's a conjunction between Venus and the sun. Venus in Aries, again, doesn't really work as well as it was when Venus is in Pisces. It's passionate, but lacks a bit of depth sometimes, and can be quite coarse in its behavior and social inclinations. I'm talking about collective, not individual there. Again, that Jupiter is 21 degrees now, and Saturn is at 10 degrees in Aquarius here. The Mercury factor is a big one at the moment, during particularly the 24th, 25th, 26th of March, because he is squaring Mars. And you got to be very careful. Yeah, I'm going to say 23rd of March, 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th. I'm going to say those key dates, simply because when Mercury squares Mars, things can be said impulsively without thought of the consequences, and it could be quite hurtful. And the energy, as I said, it's like, it's again, I've said it before, the passive aggressive effect with those two. So you've got to be kind of a little bit careful on that one, I would say. And I wouldn't be making any key decisions myself during that particular period when you've got a Mercury squaring Mars, you know, because what it's also doing is it's also squaring the nodal axis, the south. Well, it's squaring the north node and the south node, and so it's pulling on past patterns a lot, and therefore, you know, particularly if you've got planets around that sort of area in the mutable signs, around about 12 to 16 degrees in the mutable signs, so the Gemini, the Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces in your chart, in a natal chart, then just be really careful about making decisions, because it might be just a repeat of something that's you've done before, and it's not going to serve you well in the future, but it's like a set default pattern of behavior. So just be kind of very aware of that, particularly if you've got any planets placed in those degrees at that time. It's a difficult aspect, because yeah, the Mars is always unpredictable, and so can Mercury be in Pisces. So just be kind of aware of that. Okay, let's just move more forward. Let's go to the 28th. So we got the full moon on the 28th, a bit later in the day, late afternoon. As the moon is now in Libra, opposing the sun at 7 degrees. So it's going to be around about 8 degrees, the full moon. And it's going to hit the Venus as well. So Venus is going to be part of the full moon aspect going on there, and Chiron. Well, let's just have a quick look at that in a bit more depth. Okay, so yeah, so it's let's move it forward more. It's got that 8 degrees. Yeah, it's early evening, sort of 7 o'clock. Between, so yeah, late afternoon. Yeah, it's the 8 degree mark, the full moon, and it's got Chiron, it's got Venus conjunct. So you got all those planets in Aries opposing the full moon, and that is very, very significant, because that energy is drawing on old wounds, you know, how we relate to others here from the collective point of view. That's quite an intense full moon, particularly in the idea of personal relationships during that particular personal relationships and individuality. It's always a bit of a struggle, isn't it, really, you know. But that's accentuated, it's magnified during this particular time. So again, I always say full moons, it's the 2 days before the full moons. That means the 26th, 27th. It is probably the most intense. You have the full moon, and then you get 2 days afterwards, which will be the 29th, the 30th, when it kind of repaired it and kind of going, right, okay, well, here it is. So it's an tense day, particularly in the idea of partnerships generally during that time. And as we come to the end of the month, we see that Saturn has really kind of moved forward at 11 degrees now. So it's still got that square with Uranus, but it's further away. And Jupiter's at 22 degrees now in Aquarius here. And Mercury is just to end on the day, on the month, really, is getting conjunct to yeah, there we go. 30th March is going to be in conjunction with Neptune, which again deals with the smoke and mirrors and, oh, have we made mistakes and what are we doing here? So it's a kind of it's always that switch march between that Piscean mutable water energy going into the fire cardinal on the spring equinox, and there's always a jolt for most people. And always you know, I've been doing consultations, astrology consultations for over 20 years now, and it's always during that time, the equinoxes particularly, and the lead up, that I tend to get really busy with consultations, because people feel that energetic kind of shift that is occurring, and sometimes it's very difficult to handle, because you go from the emotional to this very direct, energetic, right, got to get things done. And if you haven't sorted out the emotional, then it feels a bit bumpy. It feels like a roller coaster, and so it's always a really tricky energy to work with, and that's kind of what March sort of symbolizes. And of course that square between Mercury and Mars building up throughout the month as well. So it's an interesting month. It will feel certainly that there's a lot of optimism, a lot of dreams being made, and then it's sort of like a balloon being kind of blown up, and then a needle stuck in it slightly, and it's sort of reduced by the end of the month, and will make to feel the reality. But actually, people are going to be putting things really into action, and I think that's going to be fantastic for us all. So anyway, listen, I hope that you've enjoyed that, and if you have, you know, press the like button and do subscribe to my channel, and enjoy your March, and I will speak to you all very, very soon. Thanks very much. Bye.